Welcome back to our channel, where we explore the most fascinating stories around the world. Taking a look at the world's most famous prison escapes. Every year, thousands of inmates escape from prisons around the world. Of these, most just walk away from minimum security corrections facilities, but other inmates implement complex, ingenious, and often violent schemes in order to make their getaway. Gerard's Tower of London escape. John Gerard was a 16th century Jesuit priest who is remembered as one of the only people to ever escape from the notorious Tower of London. He endured frequent interrogations, and despite never breaking even under torture, he was eventually sentenced to death. Gerard immediately began planning an escape and was able to communicate with allies on the outside via smuggled notes written in an invisible ink made from orange juice. After one failed attempt, Gerard was able to make his escape when some accomplices rowed a boat into the tower's moat and managed to get a rope up to him. Gerard almost fell to his death because his hands were so injured from torture, but he managed to climb down to the boat and was smuggled out of England to live out the rest of his life in Rome. Dillinger's County Jail escape. Dillinger's most famous escape of all came in 1934, after he was arrested on the heels of a number of famous bank heists. Dillinger was put in the escape-proof Lake County Jail, a prison that was guarded by an army of policemen and National Guard troops. In what has become something of a legend, Dillinger is said to have fashioned a phony gun out of a bar of soap and used it to force his way out of the jail. In his typical brash style, he then stole the sheriff's brand new Ford and made his escape to Illinois. Ironically, it was this move, driving a stolen vehicle across state lines, that got the FBI on his trail and eventually led to his demise. The Libby Prison escape. Richmond, Virginia's Libby Prison was one of the most infamous jails of the Civil War, but it's also the site of one of the conflict's most daring escapes. In 1864, a group of 15 Union soldiers under the direction of Colonel Thomas E. Rose and Major A.G. Hamilton managed to tunnel through the prison's basement to a nearby vacant lot. From here, 109 soldiers managed to escape into the city of Richmond and make a run for the nearby Union lines. 48 of the men were recaptured and 2 drowned in a nearby river, but 59 managed to make it to the safety of the Federal Army. Their escape remains the most successful prison break of the Civil War. Casanova's escape from the Leads. In 1753, after gaining a reputation for debauchery and adultery, Casanova was arrested and confined to the Leeds prison, so named because it was outfitted with a lead roof that was designed to encourage stifling heat and make escape impossible. After smuggling a metal spike into his cell, Casanova and a renegade priest confined nearby managed to tunnel through the ceiling of their cells. Once through, they pried open the lead plates on the roof and broke into another room through a dormer window. Using a combination of ladders and ropes, the duo managed to make it to the ground floor, and after breaking a lock and sneaking through the prison corridors, they escaped by gondola into the city's network of rivers. Pascal Payette's helicopter escapes. Payette was originally jailed for a murder and sentenced to 30 years in France's Louin's prison. In 2001, he managed to make a daring escape when an accomplice simply picked him up from the prison's roof with a hijacked chopper, but returned to jail after 2 years and sentenced to 7 years in prison. In 2007, Payette again escaped via helicopter, this time from Grasse prison in southeast France. He was lifted off the roof by 4 masked accomplices who had hijacked a chopper from a nearby airport by threatening to kill the pilot. After landing near the Mediterranean Sea, the pilot was released, and Payette and his accomplices have since disappeared. Escape from Alcatraz. In 1962, Frank Morris and Clarence and John Anglin used months of meticulous planning to make what has become the prototypical prison escape. The men used a series of tools, including a drill assembled from a vacuum cleaner motor, to chip away at the aging concrete in their cells and make it to a nearby ventilation shaft. They then made their way down a chimney to the beach, where they quickly assembled a handmade raft and escaped into the San Francisco Bay. Their escape was not realized until the next morning. Dieter Dengler's prison camp escape. Dieter Dengler was a German-American Navy pilot who made a famous escape from a jungle prison camp during the Vietnam War. On June 29, 1966, he and 6 other prisoners managed to escape from their hand and foot restraints and get a hold of the guards' weapons. After gunning down 3 guards, Dengler escaped into the dense forest. He would eventually spend 23 days in the jungle, enduring extreme heat, insects, leeches, parasites, and starvation before being rescued by an American helicopter. Dengler would go on to become a successful test pilot in his later years, and to this day, he is credited as the only American soldier to successfully escape from a prison camp during the Vietnam War, the Maze prison escape. One of the most violent prison escapes of all time, the Maze prison break took place in 1983 when 35 inmates escaped after taking control of the prison by force. After several months of planning, a group of prisoners led by IRA members Jerry Kelly and Bobby Story seized control of an entire cell block by using handguns that had been smuggled into the jail. After wounding several of the guards and stealing their uniforms, the prisoners hijacked a car and took over a nearby guard post, but when they couldn't get past the main gate, the men hopped the fence and made a run for it on foot. All told, 35 men escaped from the prison, 16 of whom were recaptured soon after, and 20 guards were injured. Billy Hayes's escape from Turkish prison. Billy Hayes was an American student who was arrested in 1970 when he tried to smuggle 2 pounds of hash onto a plane in Turkey. After being caught, he was sentenced to 30 years in the harsh Turkish prison system. Hayes toiled in Sagmilikar prison for 5 years, but he was eventually transferred to an island prison in the Sea of Marmara, and it was here that he began to seriously plan his escape. Hayes spent days hiding in a concrete bin, and when the time was right, he swam to the harbor and stole a small dinghy. From here, he was able to make his way to Greece and eventually traveled halfway around the world before arriving safely back in the United States. Hayes later wrote a book about his ordeal called Midnight Express, which was adapted into a fictionalized film of the same name. The Great Escape, a German prison that operated during WWTA. The escape was the culmination of over a year of work by some 600 prisoners. The men dug 3 tunnels 30 feet beneath the surface of the prison, with the plan of tunneling past the main fence and surfacing in the nearby forest. After gathering a collection of civilian clothes and passports on March 24, 1944, the soldiers began to make their escape. Unfortunately, the tunnel had come up short of the forest, and as the men surfaced, they were in clear sight of the guards. 76 men still managed to escape, but the 77th was spotted and the tunnel was shut down. Still, thanks to the popularity of the famous movie based on it, as well as its sheer scale and audacity, The Great Escape remains one of the most well-known prison escapes of all time. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you all liked it. Do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you will never miss any episode of our enthralling series. We are looking forward to seeing you next time, so stay curious about next video.